Can't wait to put some dye on it and soak into the shafts.
Right into the shafts.
Right into those shafts.
Get in those shafts.
Shafts.
Oh, shit. Hey, it's Megan.
And Sue.
The Spine Breakers.
And today we are doing Josh's potato chip book tag.
Yes, we were tagged by Josh at Literary Gladiators, and this is his original tag.
And we're only like 4 months late doing it. But we'll link his original video below. He also has, I believe this was his 20th foodie book tag.
Yeah, so that's kind of his MO, is he comes up with these cool foodie book tags, and they're fun.
But today is April 19th.
Yes.
So tomorrow is April 20th.
It is.
And you know what that means. 420.
Yep.
Blaze it up.
Sure.
And eat some potato chips.
And eat some potato chips because you got the munchies. So we're going to drink this extra pale ale from SweetWater Brewing Company, which is from Georgia, I believe. Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep, and it's called, I think it's just called extra pale ale and established 420s. I think that's like the date that their company began.
Oh.
Yeah, it says first conceived in our bat cave on 420.
Oh.
This kind of beer, I don't know if it's when the company began, but it's when the beer began. But it says dry hopped with a fat stash of Cascade hops.
A fat stash.
So let's try it. I like it.
He's alright.
It's definitely not as skunky as I was expecting.
Same. I was expecting it to be like brutal on the hops, but it's not.
But no, it just tastes like a pale ale to me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but it's good.
I dig it.
Alright, so let's get into these questions.
Let's do it.
So they're all based on types of potato chips.
Right.
In case you were wondering.
Megan loves potatoes, so.
I actually ate potato chips today, which is rare for me. I don't eat a lot of potato chips.
I can't keep them in my house because I will eat an entire bag in like 2 days.
Yeah.
Or less. Like, I love potato
They're just
chips.
not my snack of choice, but I mean, I like them. I don't like when you first open the bag and they smell like farts.
They totally smell like farts.
Yeah. That's pretty gross.
That's yucky. Alright, so the first question is Plain, which is a reliably good classic.
So I said good old Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I feel like most people at least like this book. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people love it and read it like as a child, including myself. Mm-hmm. And so it's a great book and it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. I said The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, whose name I can never say because goddamn. I read that book when I was a child and I read it again as an adult and I loved it both times. And I feel like there are just so many good things about it that you can appreciate. And it's a really enjoyable read.
Yeah. I haven't read it since I was a kid. I want to reread it.
I loved it.
So next is Ripple, an accessible work from a dense writer.
The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien.
J.R.R.
R squared.
Yes.
Tolkien. So he wrote the Lord of the Rings novels, obviously, and those are a little bit like thick and hard to get through, and so is the Silmarillion. Thick. With 2 C's.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are a little hard to get through. He's kind of notorious for being dense and perhaps overly descriptive in some of his novels, but The Hobbit is super accessible. It's very fun to read, very easy to read, and I love it.
And I said A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I will be honest, that is the only book I have read by him, and I read it when I was a kid. But I've heard that his other works are quite dense. I know many of them are very long, and that he's very wordy. Mm-hmm. But A Christmas Carol is just like, I feel like everyone, even if you haven't read the book, you know the story, so it's very easy to follow because you kind of already know what's going to happen. I found it easy to read when I was a child, so.
And if you need assistance with it, you can watch The Muppets.
Right.
So.
Or Scrooge. What's the one with Bill Murray?
Scrooged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch Scrooged.
Yep. Next is Sour Cream and Onion, which I do not care for.
That's my favorite.
I don't care for it.
Spoiler alert, those are my favorites.
I don't care for it. Which is a sequel just as good or better than the first.
And I said Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. So I feel like with this I guess I've only read 2 series by her at this point. But I just feel like with her, the books always get progressively better, in my opinion. And Parable of the Talents, I would say, was slightly better than Parable of the Sower.
I would agree.
I mean, Parable of the Sower was really good as well, but Parable of the Talents was like...
It made me cry real tears.
Really?
I cried real Megan tears.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't cry that much in it.
Oh, killed me. I said Shift by Hugh Howey. Because that series, it was just really good and it just kept like building on itself. Because sometimes I find, especially with series where there's 3 trilogies, if you will. If you will. The second book is kind of the slump book, and the first and the third books are the best. Like I felt that way about the Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer. Like the second book was like, but the first and the third were pretty good. But in this particular case, I don't feel like that was true.
Yeah. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed all 3 of those books. Next is BBQ, a character that can be both kind-hearted and tough.
I went with Sissix from The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet because she is very warm and maternal, but she's also kind of a badass when she needs to be, you know? And she's tough, especially like her culture's attitude toward their children could be seen, especially like in our culture, as being very tough. But yeah, and I love Sissix.
Yeah. And I said Zan from the book The Stars Are Legion by Cameron Hurley, which I just read. She's pretty badass, she can kick some ass, and she survives some really crazy shit. And it's implied that she's done some kind of fucked up stuff in her past, but at this point she doesn't remember any of that, and she shows a lot of like compassion and she kind of decides that she's going to be a better person.
Right. Next up is Salt and Vinegar, which are my least favorite type of chips.
Agreed on that one.
Stank. Which is a work for an acquired taste, but is worth a try.
And I said, consider The Lobster by David Foster Wallace. I really enjoyed David Foster Wallace's writing, but like, goddamn those footnotes. And even in his fiction, he has footnotes out the ass. I'm like, why?
I feel like that's super pretentious.
It is. His writing is fairly pretentious. But I still really enjoyed it, and I especially liked Consider the Lobster because these are essays, so they're nonfiction about a variety of subjects, and I found it really interesting, and I think he's a great writer. He was a problematic person, for sure, and he's a bit pretentious. His writing's a bit pretentious, but I think he's very good.
So I said Fledgling by Octavia Butler because Fledgling has a lot of like material in it that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and rightly so, because it's supposed to.
I feel like all Octavia Butler's books will make you uncomfortable, but this one's like uncomfortable in a way that a lot of people can't handle or don't want to handle.
Yeah, because it's not just uncomfortable in that it addresses social issues, you know, that make people uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable in other ways.
Right.
But it is totally worth a read. However, if you're new to Octavia Butler, don't start with it, because it will turn you off to Octavia Butler probably, especially if you're not used to reading weird shit. Don't start there. But once you've acquired a taste for Octavia Butler and you kind of understand her work and her motivations and stuff, then try Fledgling, because it is a really great book and it's worth a try, but it is a little off-putting.
Yeah. Next is Lightly Salted, a great work that has a low dosage of a particular genre. And
I said Kindred by Octavia Butler. Because
how many times can we bring up Octavia Butler?
Read Octavia Butler! But yeah, Kindred is largely a work of historical fiction, but it does have a little bit of like sci-fi-ish elements in that there's some light time travel in there.
Yeah.
So if perhaps sci-fi is not your go-to genre, then try Kindred.
Right.
It's good.
And I said Beloved by Toni Morrison, because there's an element of the paranormal. It's also largely historical fiction, but there's an element of the paranormal, and maybe you could even say a little bit of horror in there.
I would definitely say some horror.
Yeah.
Or at least some like thriller aspects or suspense.
Yeah. But that book is fantastic.
So good.
Yeah.
Next up is Cheese, which is a work that makes a scholarly topic accessible.
And I said White Trash, the 400-year untold history of class in America, I think.
Did you just pull that out of your head?
Yes.
Damn.
By Nancy Eisenberg. Because I think for a lot of people, and for including myself included, I don't love learning about politics. And this also has a lot of American history in it, and it was very easy to read, easy to understand, interesting. Yeah, I really dug it.
I really want to read it.
Yeah.
And I said From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. See also Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty. Both of those take kind of a touchy scholarly topic, which is death rituals, like societal handling of death in different cultures, and it makes it super accessible. Caitlin Doughty is very down to earth. She's funny. She writes those things kind of experientially from her point of view, like, because she's worked in a crematorium and she's traveled the world researching and observing death cultures, so she's able to write it from a very human place, and I really dug it.
Next is Crisps, an addictive British writer.
I didn't really know what to say for this one. I'm just going to be honest, because there are very few authors that I just read a lot of works by. There's some.
Yeah.
But
they're all American, apparently.
Apparently, yeah, or Canadian.
Yeah.
So I went with Anthony Burgess because I read The Wanting Seed and Clockwork Orange, both by him, and I really liked both of those books. I preferred The Wanting Seed to A Clockwork Orange, just because I thought it was better. And I thought it was better. And I thought it was like more easily accessible, because like A Clockwork Orange is good, but it has that whole made up language thing happening, which is fine. And like once you get it, you get it. But like at first it's like real clunky, and there's no real rhyme or reason to it. Like he literally just pulled it out of his asshole. So like it's tricky. But yeah, so Anthony Burgess.
And I don't read a lot of the same author either. So I threw back to my childhood whenever I did do that. And I said Roald Dahl, because I read, I think, like every Roald Dahl book that was in my school library. And it's, I think a lot of us read a lot of Roald Dahl as kids, and there's beloved movies made out of his books as well. So
Roald Dahl's a good one.
Very addictive.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but Murphy is trying not to. He is falling asleep, and he is trying not to. But he's sitting there like this, like...
An old man.
You old man, buddy.
He's a little old man.
So next up is Chips with Fish, which is a book you would recommend for a feel-good book club.
I said Bridget Jones's Diary.
I said the same thing!
Did you?
Yes! We didn't compare all of our answers before we started filming.
Yeah, by Helen Fielding, because it's a funny book.
Yes, it's super fun.
I also think it could spur good discussions, because she has a lot of issues with her self-esteem,
body
image, and societal pressures to look a certain way and be married, and all that. So I think it's not only fun, but
it could spur some actual like meaningful conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
So next is Chicken and Waffle, which was, I guess, one of those contest flavors,
which is weird. Like I get chicken and waffles for breakfast. That actually makes sense to me. I like chicken. I like waffles.
Chicken and waffles is delicious.
Sounds great. And if you put syrup on fried chicken, I imagine that would taste pretty delightful, like maple syrup. But like, why do we have to have potato chips? Like, why would
I
we
think
make
all
that?
those crazy contest flavors, I'm like, that's just not necessary. But anyway, this is a work that tries to do too much.
I said Enter Wild Time by Paul Majors. Now again, if I were I've said this before, but if I were a Doctor Who fan, I feel like maybe I would have been more into this book. But it was just like too bizarre for even me. And it just seemed like the author was pulling these like unrelated strange elements out of their asshole and like, here's the book.
Right.
So it didn't seem cohesive to me, and it just seemed fucking strange. But again, I do feel like it was
slap it. It's like on camera, all you can see is the top of his
Because
head.
him trying not to seep. He's like so tired. But yeah, so if I were a Doctor Who fan, I feel like maybe I would have been more into it, but I'm not, so I don't know.
And I said The Stars Are Legion by Cameron Hurley. I felt like she had a lot of really cool ideas and the concept was really cool, but I just didn't feel like all of them really came together, or that a lot of them just seemed like incomplete, because I think you couldn't cram it all into that book, you know? I wasn't in love with the book, I'll be honest. I thought it was, like I say, I thought it was a cool concept and I really liked certain elements of it, but I just felt like there was too much going on and I had a lot of unanswered questions at the end.
Potato, an influential work you feel is overlooked.
Saying this work is overlooked is a stretch, because I think everyone knows this book, but I said Dune by Frank Herbert because it's been hugely influential in the sci-fi world. I mean, Star Wars was incredibly influenced by Dune, and that is, you know, a huge
piece
fandom.
of pop culture.
Yeah. And then it kind of changed the sci-fi game too, because it really, I was reading about it earlier, and this article I read said that it was kind of one of the first like major soft sci-fi books that really explored like politics and human nature, kind of like it was a sci-fi book that was more about humans
than sci-fi stuff.
Right.
That makes sense.
And I feel like a lot of people either pass this book up or they like DNF it at the beginning because it is pretty dense and political at first. If you get past that, I think the second half of the book is, I enjoyed the second half a lot more, and it really gets into like action, and then also more about like the ecology of the planet Dune, which I found really interesting. But yeah, I mean, you can see Dune influencing so many things, even like Beetlejuice. There's a fucking sandworm. You know?
Yeah, I think you're right. People do overlook it because like I've wanted to read Dune for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's so big.
Yeah, I think people are intimidated by it too. So I think a lot of people just pass it up.
Yeah,
like everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
But not a whole ton of people actually take the time to read it.
I said Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I loved this book. It was about a like female utopian society, but it was also kind of an early 1900s like exploration adventure novel. So it was like a, oh, did get a kicky foot? Oh, the kicky foot. Oh, the kicky foot. Oh, noodle. But yeah, I feel like, especially with kind of the rise of, like, I feel like the Handmaid's Tale TV show sparked new interest in the book The Handmaid's Tale, which kind of spawned a whole, and this was happening I think before the TV show came out anyway, just because of politics, but like recently there's been kind of a flood of female-centric dystopian novels, and I think that Herland is important and influential in that because, like I said, it's like a female utopian society, and it's really interesting because these men are on this expedition and they discover this society, and the men are kind of treated in this novel like women typically are. And so it's like, oh, well, they're emotional, or oh, they're whatever. And it was really, really interesting to see men written that way. Plus, I love Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I think she's incredible. I mean, she gets recognition, but I don't think she necessarily gets the recognition she deserves.
And pretty much, I mean, me included, but most people have only read the Yellow Wallpaper,
which is excellent. It's an excellent story, but I think Herland is incredible, and I think more people should read it, and I loved it.
All right, and then next is, what is your favorite kind of potato chip?
Oh, yes. Honestly, I really like the wavy, like plain wavy chips, and I like to dip them in salsa.
Potato chip and salsa.
It's really
interesting.
It sounds bizarre, but it's really good. I did it one night when I was drunk and we were out of tortilla chips, and I was like, I want salsa. So I dipped my wavy chips in the salsa, and it was tasty. I also love barbecue chips. I love tortilla chips.
Tortilla chips aren't potato chips.
Which are not potato chips, but they are chips. I don't like the crazy flavored chips, but other than that, like I pretty much, oh, salt and pepper chips are really good.
That does sound good. Honestly, if I'm gonna eat chips, I would probably eat like Cheetos or Funyuns. But when it comes to potato chips, sour cream and onion, that's the kind I ate earlier today. And barbecue would probably be my second favorite. Yeah, and the wavy ones are good for dipping. I like, my favorite dip to dip potato chips in is the Highland French onion dip.
I've never had that.
I love it.
I'm not a big dip
I feel
fan.
like you wouldn't like it.
Yeah,
But I love it.
So, fucking potato chips, man.
Yeah.
Who do we want to tag?
Since we're so late, we'll do an open tag.
Right.
If you're celebrating 420,
And you have the munchies and you're eating potato chips.
then do the potato chip tag. Or if you just love potato chips.
Yeah. I mean, we personally will not be celebrating 420. But if that's your thing, then go for it and eat some chips.
Yeah.
I might eat some chips anyway just because I love chips.
I probably will because I have a bag of sour cream and onion chips at my house.
Just love chips.
I've been eating sandwiches and chips.
Have you ever put chips on your sandwich?
Oh yes, I do that all the time.
Oh, so good.
A little crunch
A little
in
crunch.
your sandwich.
It's delicious. Murphy's like, I take that.
Yeah. Alright, so that is it for us. And thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.